marhaba to another episode of Gen Z Amigas weekly podcast, where we explore the defining experiences of Gen Z women navigating life in an ever-changing world. I'm your host, Maha, and today we're questioning something so foundational it might shake the whole system. And this question is traditional education still relevant for Gen Z right now? From lectures we sweep through to tuition fees that feel like highway robbery, Gen Z is waking up to the idea that school might not be the only or best way to learn. We've got YouTube, now ChatGPT, online courses, and so many more access to education. So what's the point of sitting in a classroom anymore, you could question. And to unpack this topic, I'm joined by two women who've lived both sides of the debate, Jude and Arianne, one deep in the world of academic pressure and the other. So let's get into it. The first segment that we could delve into is, the classroom versus the real world. Let's start at the beginning. We're told go to school, get good grades, and then get a job. But does that formula even, hold up anymore? So, Jude, I want to start with you. Was there a moment where you felt like traditional school just wasn't preparing you for the real world at all?
I mean, I wouldn't say not preparing me, but obviously there's a lot of things because now I'm almost in my third year of university, which is insane. But it's very like they set you very traditional like norms about following specific stuff. And yeah, they tell you like you would use all of this in university. I did not use any single thing that I learned in like back like in school and university now, but also like the systems are different. So I feel like also it depends on like where the country. I was in Lebanon before. I'm in Spain now, so all of this work environment is different. But obviously, yeah, I don't really think it like I used anything. Maybe some stuff, obviously, like I think more about the experience and how to think critically. That helped me a lot. But like some specific subjects, it's not. Yeah,
Yeah, so you're saying in some ways it was useful, in some ways it was,
yeah,
completely irrelevant in a
exactly.
sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ariane, I want to turn to you a bit and ask you, you're in college. Do you, and, people take those paths. We've all taken the college path. Do you think that college is the only path, or like many people, they choose a gap year, etc.? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think college is not the only path. Myself, I took a gap year before coming here, and
Uh-huh.
I was working for the whole year. So I do think that some people the correct path you can say it's college, but also you shouldn't define what a correct path means because everyone else has different journeys. Everyone else has like different like outcomes they want to pursue. So I don't think college is the only thing that should redefine what success means for you. I really think that it also depends what you want to do. If you want to work in something more like customer service, maybe like tourism, I don't really think you need to go to college. Of course, I think college is important, but it's not what makes you get a job at the end of the day. It shapes you as as an ends meet as a human being, but it doesn't mean that, okay, you go to college and then you're going to get a job, then you're going to retire. Like, this is what I was talking with most of my friends, and we like just kind of like build upon this area that college should just be like a way to shape who you are, like basic skills like writing, learning how to think critically. That if you go straight to the workforce, you're not gonna be able to, like straight ahead. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean there. And in terms of, like you said, people have different paths, and some paths, require a degree or, certain skills that you can only in some ways learn in college, but in other ways, people take their own paths and they can still be very successful without a college degree. So, traditional education, yes, does give structure, but in a sense, we could say there's not always substance. And while it may have worked for past generations, you could say that Gen Z is asking, where's the real world application? But now let's look at what's filling the gap. If it's not the classroom, what is it teaching us now? We're in the era of micro learning, tutorials, and online courses. Gen Z is even turning, to social media and Discord for answers and it's fast, it's free, it's, way more engaging than sitting in a 80, 90-minute lecture. Um, so, Ariana, I wanted to ask you your opinion on this. Do you think that the internet, in a way, has made us better learners or just better at kind of skimming through?
I think it's also better learners because I do think that the internet also encompasses like ChatGPT. The issue that we have with ChatGPT in general is that it's not making us learn. But if you think about how we were like working before we had this like AI component, I remember like I used to like scroll for so long to maybe just like try to maybe like understand a physics concept. So I do think that with degrees or not degrees, but just like education that's more towards STEM, I think just having the capacity of like searching for all of the answers, like really understanding, taking your time, that maybe if you sit in a classroom, you're not going to understand in 90 minutes that you have the lecture. So if you go back and you just search on like online YouTube tutorials, all that stuff, like I feel like just having the capacity of being connected to the internet helps you a lot in understanding and learning. And if you look at how our past generations, like our dads or like moms, how they were like learning beforehand, they had this sort of like gap. So, but now, like if we go to like the classroom and we didn't understand something and maybe the professor didn't like really answer our question correctly, we can just go and search for something on YouTube. And I'm gonna tell you, there's gonna be a lot of answers to any question you have. And that's something that before we didn't have the option. So I feel like internet is just like it helps us like in every like sort of platform if we only think about searching online instead of just using ChatGPT, asking a question and getting the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always that kind of backhand, if you really don't understand something in a lecture and there's no time to ask questions, there's always that extra source, like you said, that our parents didn't have. So, I completely agree that in a way the internet does make, learning more useful and easier, and you can even learn things that you would never learn in university when you search things online because there's so many different sources. And so, Jude, I want to turn the a different question to you about, you know, yes, we go to university and or in school, I'm sure we've all had this kind of conflict between feeling torn between following what you have to study and what you are, actually interested in college and in high school before. So do you ever feel torn between, what you have to study and what you're actually interested in?
I feel like personally, I've always known from before what I really want to do. So like whenever I knew which university I wanted, I knew the specific major that I wanted because I know, but from my friends and people around me, I know sometimes it's more complicated for other people. So in this space, I feel like we have counselors in school that like help us somehow for our future, like to know what kind of things we want. But sometimes they're not really helpful because I know it's very like it's a big decision. It's not easy, like you're a 18-year-old like student and then you have to make a decision that could like literally like trace your whole future and maybe not like some people change majors some people but I think like it's a big decision for an 18-year-old to know what they want and I feel like self-assessment is very important in this part because and plus with the internet like you guys mentioned before like we have a lot of people that for example experienced college and then dropped out and made their own businesses and stuff like that so there's a lot of um help coming from the internet that we can learn. It doesn't have to be necessarily like study stuff, but more about like life experiences and stuff that maybe an 18-year-old or school wouldn't have like taught us because they're on the more traditional side and they have norms that they have to respect depending on the French system, American system, British system, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, so in a way, I mean, like you said, in the systems in high school, you don't like have a choice. In the UAE, where I studied in a British school, it was a requirement to learn Arabic. Personally, I mean, I'm Lebanese, so I love it, but for a lot of maybe foreign students, etc., it's maybe not their first choice, but it is a requirement. So um, I'm sure every single student in the whole world that has had the opportunity to have an education has felt, oh no, I don't want to do this math homework or oh, I don't want to go to this class. It's, very normal. So we're with so much information out there. Another question that we could ask ourselves, Ariane mentioned about YouTube and how there's all these sources, it's hard to maybe tell what's credible and what's just noise. So for the third segment of this podcast, I think we should talk about the trust. For decades, a college degree was the golden ticket, but now it's a feeling more like a very expensive souvenir having that, college degree. So, Jude, do you think that employers still value degrees the way that they used to? Or, are skills finally taking center stage, or personality, or etc.?
So obviously, like I've always said this, I have this thing in my mind where like the school gives you the passport to college, and then the college is the passport for working after, like in the real world. But what I think is that degree still matters, yes. But there's a lot of like traditional companies, they still value degrees, obviously. Like they want like workers from the best universities, whatever. But skills are taking a central stage now, and developing that's why like now companies they value, they focus more on the CV and on your personal accomplishments plus your degree. But I think that a degree doesn't define a person, so yeah.
Yeah, and Ariane, I mean, the same question to you, uh, do you think that employers, when we apply for jobs, are they going to be looking at our GPA, or maybe do you think will have a more holistic, open mind? Does the diploma really, how does that play into it?
I feel like really your college degree doesn't really take up on like that. It's not that important. Of course, yeah, like if you want to have a lawyer, if you want to have a doctor, they should have a college degree somehow. Um, but for other like career paths, you don't really require a college degree. Like if you want to do business, some people, as you said before, like some people have maybe been in college and then they drop out of college and they start their own like business or like startup. Even computer science, you can even learn how to code online. Like all of those resources, all of the like skills like are online, so our employers already know that it doesn't really matter your GPA as well, because some other students they don't really show what their skill what the skills they have based upon their GPA. So I've always talked about how really intelligence doesn't really correlate to your grades, because some people may be
Yes.
able to focus much more in classroom, some others they can't, and some other people are better with actually doing the actual work, and some others really fail when they do this. And there has been studies of people that have maybe like a 4.0, but when they go and like actually go into the real world, they fail because they have never like encounter failures. So that's something like I feel like university teaches you a lot, is that how you're gonna act when you fail, or like you fail a class, or maybe like if you need, like in my case, because we travel a lot. So what are you gonna do when you go like to a different country and then you like have to build this like skills that you have maybe like built in the classroom into the real world. So I do think the college degree matters, yeah, to a certain extent, depends on the career path you want to like follow, but it doesn't really matter if you want to do something that doesn't require any technical, like like a civil engineer or like a doctor or like a lawyer. Those really require something like the college degree. But if you don't want to follow these career paths, then it doesn't really matter, and employers know this as well. So that's the reason they focus on like certifications you have had, or like which people who have worked on, like which are the things that you're more interested about, or like the initiatives you have like built in your university. So I think this is what really matters more. And Gen Z as well has been, also in general, I think we have also found this, the truth, and like I think we have understand this as well, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of Gen Z, kind of creating this, I mean, in my opinion, I think that Gen Z are creating this kind of, new movement in a sense that we feel more free to do what we think will be best for us in our future. We're not as tied down to staying in the traditional ways. And, our success isn't tied down to a piece of paper. It's tied to impact, creativity, freedom, and the ability to adapt. Education, yes, of course, still matters, but maybe we could say it needs a bit of a makeover. Um, you know, it can be said that we need less memorization and, like Jude mentioned, more critical thinking, fewer bubble sheets, more real world application. Like Ariane, you mentioned, when you fail, what are you gonna do? Like, pe people need to know how to take that step forward. Most importantly, we need to stop, measuring intelligence through grades alone. I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, we need that kind of academic validation. And I'm not saying school is useless, but I'm saying it's not enough anymore. If we want to thrive, we need systems that actually prepare us for the real world we're living in, not the one that existed 50 years ago, you could say.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Go,
No,
go,
I
go.
just wanted to add, like, sorry, I got cut off before, but I wanted
Mhm.
to add that especially like on social media and stuff like that, like there's a lot of influencers that we follow and stuff like that. Now, like this generation right now is having access to the internet and to smartphones way earlier than we had. Like we are still part of this generation where we were kind of in the middle. So we were first at the very traditional side, and then we started discovering the world more. Like maybe beginning end of years of school, beginning of years of university. Whereas the generation of my sister, for example, they had smartphones very, very early. And there's a lot of influencers out there that basically are making them learn education in the way that is not specifically like university driven, and you don't have to pay this tuition that high to go to a good university. Like I know a lot of my friends, they stayed in Lebanon with a tuition not that high, but for them it's like, what, okay, I'm gonna have I'm gonna have a degree, and so what after?
100%. And I just wanted to bring one last question to Ariane. It's kind of a closing question. In terms of what advice would you maybe give to someone who feels lost in the education system right now, whether it's in high school, middle school, in college? What advice would you give to someone that's, feels kind of stuck in that education system?
I think if I even myself, because I've been in those situations, I felt stuck. Even when I was in high school, then I came to university. I've even been like in three majors at this point, so I also understand that because I
Hmm.
feel like the if you feel that you're stuck, just follow your like that's what I did personally. Like I was first doing engineering, but I really felt I was stuck. Like I was not doing what I wanted to do, like in like life later on. So I do think that if you feel like you're not there, like you feel like you're not like they're like insecure where you are like in the education system, then I'll just encourage to break out of that cycle. Like break out of this. If you feel like maybe like the university you're right now, it's not the right place to be, or if you feel like what you're doing right now, it's not okay, then just break out of that cycle, get out and like really move forward and really follow what you really want to do. I know it sounds very like okay, generalized, but as once you start doing the things that you really want to do, then just life just changed completely. That you're gonna understand that okay, this is the reason why I'm here. So I think that once you really feel that you're stuck somewhere, even if it's like how your classroom it's like working or the classes you're taking, once you take a different perspective, maybe you're in university, but you're like I feel like the classes I'm taking they're not really that important. Then you should turn your like purpose and maybe like actually work and do internships. Maybe that's what really is gonna like help you much more understand the world rather than like you said in a class for 90 minutes, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's something that I've also done. It's like I felt like also like education wise, like just sitting in a classroom was not for me. So yeah, I still take the classes, of course. Like I'm still in university, but I focus my perspective on things that make more impact. I really want to be remembered as someone who makes more impact rather than someone who gets a 4.0 in like a stats or a calc class. Like I don't think you should define yourself within this constraint, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we could kind of summarize from your answers, it's about taking action and like you said, breaking the cycle. Yes, we have to do these classes. Yes, we want to do well, but it's also about, taking that next leap and kind of making like going to your full potential in a sense. So thank you for that. And I think that's all the time we have on this week's episode of Gen Z Amigas. A huge shout out and thank you to Jude and Ariane for sharing your honest perspectives and very, very, very powerful insights. I've learned a lot from you guys today. And to our listeners of Gen Z Amigas, do you think traditional education still makes sense for this generation, or are we overdue for a complete reboot? So let us know in the comments and keep the convo going on Climate Pen Pals Media, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Until next time, goodbye, adios, and ma